So on March 9th, 2019, I wanted to see How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World, but unfortunately for me, the theater was overpacked and loud, obnoxiously loud, to the point where I couldn't even hear the first 5 minutes of the movie. I spoke to a theater attendant and explained to them the situation. They gave me two options. Either they could refund my ticket, or they could let me see something completely different at no additional charge. But unfortunately for me, How to Train Your Dragon was really the only movie I wanted to see at this point, because there's really a whole lot of nothing out right now. So, there was really only one other movie that I had any slight interest in seeing, but not enough to actually see out of my own initiative. So I saw Captain Marvel, and what a surprise, it was really boring. That's not to say I wasn't expecting that from a movie like this, whose only existence is to shoehorn a character in for the next movie. Now, normally I would probably give a spoiler warning to this one, but I don't think I need to do that for this one because A, nothing really happened in this movie, and B, I don't even remember what the point of the movie was. I remember Super Skrull was the villain, and I remember there were a lot of moments that were meant to fill plot holes, but that's pretty much it. I will give credit where credit is due and say that at least I did enjoy the aesthetic of the film because it was going for a very 90s feel movie, which is really, I think, the only way they could pull off a storyline at this point in their saga. I mean, considering they killed off about 70% of their cast. And I did like Nick Fury's inclusion this time. I mean, he wasn't an exposition dumper like he was in most of the films he's in. That's pretty much as far as my nice compliments go for this movie, because other than that, it was passable but boring. And when I say boring, I don't mean that I didn't have any interest in the subject matter because it's not my forte. I mean that the film was paced in such a way that the entire thing was a schlock. What sucks about it so much is that that's kind of what Marvel does now with their smaller entries. The real victim with these smaller movies that they don't pay too much mind to in terms of development is the villains, because some of these villains are some of the most wasted entries. If you don't recall, Super Skrull is actually a formidable adversary against the Fantastic Four, considering he's got most of their powers. Hey, he's supposed to be one of the strongest members of the Skrull army. His homeworld was destroyed by Galactus. He should have enough backstory there to become one of the most developed and motivated villains that Marvel has ever seen.
I hope Galactus consumes your homeworld next.
But instead we get Talos, some boring f***head in makeup with a gun, and that's it. That's all you get. Have fun. Outside of Samuel L. Jackson, this movie was cast very average. No one really did an exceptional job, and everyone seemed to have this constant undertone that they wanted to get their shooting done so they could get their next paycheck. And when I say the entire cast, I don't necessarily mean just the main characters, because even the extras weren't given that great of direction, or they just didn't care. Particularly in the action scenes, where the most comedy in the film ended up being unintentionally. I swear to God, that Skrull disguised as an old lady reminded me of Yoda from the prequel trilogy. Outside of those things altogether, however, this movie is painfully average to me. Most like half of the things Marvel ends up releasing. This was not a good or bad movie, it was just average. Passable for Marvel, I guess. And if you're the type of audience member that can be completely satisfied with achieving the bare minimum, then I think you'll enjoy this movie just fine. But if you're anything like I am and you appreciate that little bit extra that certain superhero movies have, then you might want to skip this one. Heck, if you're even the kind of person that just sees these movies so you're not behind on the story, I honestly think you won't miss anything if you skip this one, because this movie was nothing but plot hole fill after plot hole fill and moments of... So that's why that makes sense. I think the only new information ends up coming from the end credits scene. But does 30 seconds to a minute of extra footage at the end of a movie justify sitting through an hour and 45 minutes of the rest of it, solely for the intent of gaining that information? If you answered yes to that question, then congratulations, you are exactly the kind of consumer that Disney wants. Now, I understand that there is a dominion of people on the internet that say this movie is bad because women. Those people are dumb. There are also people that say the only reason people hate this movie is because they are men. Those people are also dumb. And the more that both of these people keep shouting this stupid rhetoric that's not even connected with the movie, the further we detract from the actual problem with the movie. Why go into detail about things that are actually wrong with the movie when we can just demonize anyone who disagree with us simply because they don't have the same reproductive organs as us? If we actively silence anyone who disagrees with us, then the only people left will be the people who agree with us. Isn't that the ideal world we want to live in? Anyway, I thought this particular outing by Marvel was exceptionally boring and average, and I don't see myself revisiting it at any given point. Here's just to hoping that Endgame does a better job than that. Because let's face it, Endgame is the only reason this movie exists. And I'm giving this movie a 5 out of 10. Thank you for watching, goodbye.